now.
Yep.
We got Brad Parler from TapeWorks, Texas, and we're going to talk everything about camcorders and video. Thanks, Brad, for coming on with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we're going to start out talking, everything video. We're going to talk about a little bit about maybe consumer and pro camcorders, for instance. Now, actually, nowadays the consumer camcorders are getting pretty powerful in what they can do. Now they can do all HD video on the most part, and now they added stabilization, which makes it a lot better for when you're moving around and things like that. And can you tell us your thoughts on some of the consumer camcorders out there?
That's been one of the amazing things about what I like to call as the democratization of video production. Because of Moore's Law and the development of technology, we're seeing consumer products have nearly the same features or a dumbed down set of the features that we used to spend $30,000 on. Now, I come from a more than 10-year history in doing live radio and television production, and whenever I first got started, the cameras that we were shooting on were $30,000 to $50,000 depending on the lens package. You can get better resolution, not the same optics necessarily as far as the lens, but you can get nearly better resolution, smaller packages for way less. We're talking about less than $3,000 now.
You're talking about consumer range?
Yeah, the high-end consumer, what some people call the prosumer range, and then going down into the consumer range, you're just getting you're still doing the same resolution, but you have the camera thinking more for you than it would be than a professional camera, giving you more features so that you can help the camera think for it.
Okay, so if we're talking price range, what would you consider a consumer, a prosumer, and maybe pro? What type of price ranges?
Well, in consumer, it's really the less than 1,000. In prosumer, it's going to be less than 2,500, and then pro starts at 3,000 thereabouts and goes up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't realize. Well, actually, there's some considering on the top end of the I don't know, maybe prosumer range. Now, talking about the consumer and pro, what are the kind of the differences between the two? I have my own definition, but I kind of wanted to get your own thoughts on that.
Well, the key difference between a consumer camera and a professional camera is going to come down to what kind of audio recording facilities it has, and then the file format that it's going to be recording onto. 90% of all of the consumer cameras that you're going to see will not have professional level audio inputs. And by that I mean you're not going to be able to put a professional XLR microphone into consumer cameras. Now, there are manufacturers on the market that have made the distinctions like, hey, we know that you need a real microphone, and therefore we're going to put our professional microphone and dumb it down to a consumer input so that you at least have some real sound. And manufacturer that's been really known for doing that is Rode out of Australia. Their video mic you can get the video mic and the video mic Pro and then the video mic stereo into a mini headphone jack. It's a balanced input. It's not the best type of connection because it's it's really easy to break those connections.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
but for a really dedicated soccer mom who really wants amazing, video and audio of her kid, it's just one of those things that yes, you can put a $300 microphone on this, $400 camera, and you'll come away with amazing stuff.
Yeah. Now, of course, we're talking about the difference between consumer and pro, and kind of my definition would be kind of like pro audio, which we talked a little bit about, XLR connections in particular, and external controls, which I would consider a pro feature. And now you mentioned file format. Could you go a little bit more into that?
Absolutely. The codec that the camera is actually encoding the video into the file. A consumer camera, and even prosumer cameras. Actually, let me take that back. Even some pro level cameras are now using the same codec. It's the AVC HD, which is based on the H.264 MPEG-4 encoding. It's the same kind of encoding that we're using in Blu-ray. Because it is such a robust codec that it does a lot of compression. Your video is heavily compressed. You are shooting into what is considered a distribution format, but because it does it so well, people put up with it. Now,
I've heard a few things, some negative things with AVDCH, and so you're saying that it's actually it's not that bad of a codec, because normally I think AVDCH is thought of as a consumer type of format, but I think I do recognize that some even prosumer and even maybe pro cameras are starting to use it.
Yeah, AVC HD, it's a standard that's being used by all the manufacturers now. Even although they do call it different things, Sony and Panasonic, I believe, call it AVC Cam, and Canon just calls it the AVC HD. But if you look at the cameras closely in their specs, you're going to see that it's the same exact thing. It's all based on the H.264 MPEG-4 encoding. Cameras like the NX5U from Sony, which is a professional level camera. Now it's writing that AVC HD file. The Canon XA10, even the way that the Canon 5D, it's writing it into a AVC HD wrapper.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see.
And so where you get the distinction between now the XA10, the XF100, and the XA10, the NX5U from Sony, the XA10 from Canon, both of those are AVC Cam or AVC HD cameras. They're professional cameras because of the kinds of chips that they're using, the imagers that are shooting the video. They have professional level audio on them. Both have 2 XLR mic inputs. Where you move up into a even more professional codec is like the XF100 from Canon, which uses an MPEG-2 or an MXF codec, which shoots at 50 megabit per second.
And I think maybe that's the difference between we're seeing like more. I don't know if I can use the word more bandwidth being recorded.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And I'm glad you put that in the chat, because I got it here written down here wrong. I always forget the order. AVC HD, is that the correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, I've been saying it wrong, so.
That's okay. Yeah, that's it's become a standard where HDV was the previous standard of being able to record compressed HD into a smaller bandwidth. Well, with the flash media getting faster and more reliable, we're able to increase the bandwidth that we're able to throw onto a disk at the same time.
Okay, let me, since we're talking about kind of pro-consumer or prosumer to pro cameras, of course, I've got this as a kind of a demo right here, which is the Canon XF100, which I bought from TapeWorks, Texas, right here, and I kind of want to get into the actual sensor, and because I'm seeing some of the older cameras, or even some of the pro level cameras, normally seem to use 3 sensors, and some are now actually using 1 sensor, which of course this one does right here. I think it's 1/3 of an inch. So what I've been hearing is often a larger sensor you're going to get more light into, which is going to be better for low light conditions. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, single chip cameras have been around since the 50s because they didn't know how to get video technology when they were doing tube cameras, getting it split apart. You're splitting the light spectrum, and so it's not a new technology. What we're seeing that is new, though, is large single chip cameras that utilize one huge sensor. That would, an example of that would be the Sony FS100, where it's using a super 35mm size sensor, where the XF100, it's a single 1/3 inch imager, but that 1/3 inch imager is absolutely brilliant, and it's able to pull off what similar cameras on the market just aren't able to do. The way that they've developed the sensor, they've developed the processing for that sensor is absolutely brilliant. Now, in your XF100, if you wanted to move up to a 3 sensor camera, that camera is known as the XF300. And it's a amazing camera, but you more than double the cost. And we're talking about a $6,800 camera.
Well, are we seeing are we going to see a trend toward like from 3 sensor cameras to perhaps 1 sensor cameras? Because is the technology getting better on the sensors where multi-sensor cameras are going to be kind of phased out? I'm just...
No, I really don't think that that's ever going to happen. There's an application for a single sensor camera as well. I don't think that that's, better sensors is not going to, destroy the market for multiple sensor cameras. What's amazing is, with the FS100 using the super 35mm sensor, well, Sony's also developed a 3 sensor camera based on that technology.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah,
it costs $65,000 though, but it exists, and that's more used in the digital filmmaking, end of the spectrum. It's not necessarily a something that a guy who's going to go out and shoot some video is going to need, but it's available. So there's always going to be an application for that kind of technology.
Now, there was actually something else I wanted to talk about, because when I was first starting in video, on doing the show and recording video, I was thinking at one time, that the higher megapixel the sensor, the better the video, but I guess that's not necessarily true, because when you think about megapixels or needing more megapixels, that's more for digital photo cameras rather than video. So, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, the megapixel myth is one that people are starting to figure out that it really doesn't matter. What's amazing right now, one of the leading news gathering tools in the the ENG market is an iPhone. Because it's a 5 megapixel camera that will shoot great quality 720p video. And you can, because it's, you know, it's not as good as the video that comes off of a XF100, but it's a matter of the convenience and already being on a connected computer network. And at that point, it becomes a means of distribution rather than the quality of the video. And that's something that I was really hopeful when we saw the company Flip being purchased by Cisco. I was really hoping that they would have figured out, hey, we get all of these handheld cameras that shoot great quality HD video on the network, and we've completely revolutionized news gathering. Unfortunately, they weren't able to make that connection, and they've
phased it out.
They phased it out.
Yeah.
I have no idea why they acquired it if they didn't, you know, they couldn't figure that out.
Actually, I've seen some, even like news reporters use the iPhone as, you know, of course they had, they used it like in an Owly type configuration. And
exactly.
Actually,
yeah, and it's one of those things that it's absolutely brilliant for what it is, and you know, most people have them, and so it makes it, you know, and it goes back to the points when I talked about at the very beginning. Technology democratizes it, puts it into the hands of people who necessarily couldn't, you know, do this, you know, 5 years ago. And so with the technology developments that we're seeing in consumer cameras, you know, we're seeing the what used to be super high end come down to the hands of the consumers.
And let me go back a little bit on, we were talking about megapixels. I've heard this thing with sensors that sometimes using, oh, well, I'll give an example. Most 1080p video, all you really need is a, I think, 2 megapixel sensor.
I think that's the bare minimum that you can
Oh, is it bare minimum?
Get away with.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in some instances, I'm seeing this. I hear this get thrown out a bit, or a little bit, where in some cases it's better to have a lower megapixel because the actual individual sensors are actually larger, and you get a supposedly better picture. I don't know if you heard that before, or I don't know if it's a myth or.
That's part of the megapixel myth, is that it goes back to the purists of saying, hey, a larger, higher quality sensor, even if it's not as deep of a resolution, is good. I mean, there are trade-offs in both directions. So what you really want is great processing behind a great chip. And that's one of the things that Canon has really been able to do with their Digic processors that are being put into, like the EOS, the 5D Mark II, or the 60D, and you know, other, you know, smaller end cameras that they don't have as many of the Digic processors. Like the 7D has 2, but then when you look at the specs, it's handling, you know, one of the processors is just for autofocus and auto exposure, which is great if you're shooting photos. But if you're not shooting, if you're only shooting video, you're not using it, which is why they came out with the 60D, and you know, that's been upgraded in a different generation as the T3i, which, you know, is even less expensive. So there's always, you know, different things. Ultimate goal in you know, just talking about megapixels, I don't really look at that at all when I'm choosing a video camera for a specific application. I'm looking at image size, what codec, and how many imagers are there. Okay.
Now let's go into recording media a little bit, because there's actually several out there. Now some are more than likely being phased out, so we may not see it anymore, but since people often buy used, they'll buy older camcorders, and we're going to go over some of the recording media, which is HDD, which is hard drive, tape, flash, firewire capture, HDMI, and USB 2. We're going to kind of go through that. I haven't seen any new cameras come out in HDD, and I don't know if that's more consumerish.
Well, the one that it's not strictly hard drive, but it's a hybrid, is the XA10 from Canon. It's a professional line camera for $1,999, and it has professional audio inputs. It has an internal 64 gig hard drive or solid state drive, and it also allows you to put 2 SDHC cards or XC cards, so that you can have up to 3 64 gig drives on this thing. So up to 192 gigs, that's going to shoot over 12 hours of the highest resolution HD video.
Actually, to tell you the truth, I didn't even think about that, because they do have hybrid drives, which with I'm trying to SSD type drives.
Right.
Of course, I was really talking about the HDD, which I think actually use mechanical.
Oh, okay, yeah, the like the JVC consumers.
Yeah, that's probably some of the, there was even some Sonys, I believe, that were HDD at one time. But yeah,
I think that the Evero JVCs are probably the last ones on the market that are really just holding on to that. I'm digging through my JVC stuff right now.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at all of their recent consumer cameras, and I'm not seeing anything that has hard drives built into it anymore.
Yeah. Now, going back, you said the SSD drives. I have seen on some of the newer cameras that it even comes as a expansion. It just kind of, I can't remember which camera, but it's just almost the size of a regular SSD that just you just plug right into the camera itself.
Oh, yeah, the Sony has that in their NX line. It's that was first utilized about 2 years ago in the NEX 5U. And it's actually a 120 gig or 128 gig a full-blown SSD that you plug into the side of your camera. So you have that as redundancy for your card slot. So you can record onto the SD card, as well as the onboard FMU 128 or the SSD at the same time. What was really interesting when Sony did that 2 years ago, they enabled you, because you can use different formats. You can shoot HD to your secure digital card, and you can record SD as a redundant file to your SSD card or drive. So that's one that has really utilized the SSD as an actual hard drive. Where in the Canon, the XA10, it's a internal 64 gig storage device that you cannot remove.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and go to tape-based cameras, which can be consumer and prosumer and pro, and can be, I think, standard definition and high definition as well. And often that is thought of, it goes along with FireWire, which you use FireWire capture, which I believe is being phased out. We don't see that much anymore, but still a lot of pros use the tapes.
Yeah, I would have to say so. Obviously, with the name of the business that I work at, we know a lot about tape. TapeWorks Texas has been around for 15 years now. I've been actually shopping at TapeWorks for the last 9 years, and I've been here as a sales representative for a year now. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and we all know it here, so it's not that it's like not the big elephant in the room, but tape is going away.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that it's dead, but tape is going away. There are no cameras that are on the market that are being manufactured right now that are utilizing tape, other than the super high end, where we're shooting onto HD cam or HD Cam SR. And even then, you know, with those, where we're talking about tapes that it's not that you're going into a Best Buy or a big box store and picking up these kind of tapes.
Yeah.
We're talking about tapes that are, you know, $50 plus per tape. You know.
Oh, okay.
And so, you know, the HD Cam, you know, what's amazing is it's this format that most, you know, average people who are just, you know, enjoying television don't realize that a good 90% of their TV shows are being shot on, you know, Cine Alta cameras using HD Cam, and being mastered to those things. So,
are those tape-based cameras, by the way?
Say again?
Are those tape-based cameras, which is used in the broadcast television still, or is that what you're talking about?
People are getting, I mean, even in broadcast, we're seeing broadcasters, like entire networks. Fox is, I believe, entirely P2 based, which is a version of an SSD card from Panasonic. The most like news stations are going to XD Cam, which is a more robust version of Blu-ray, which is an optical disc that you can re-record onto, but it's using a Blu-ray as a storage device. So it's very shelf stable. You don't have to. That's one of the things that people miss about tape, is that when you shoot it, you can put it on the shelf and you don't have to worry about your archive.
Yeah, that's true. And plus, it's fairly inexpensive too.
Exactly. Well, with all of the new cameras coming on the market, they're using, you know, in the very early days of the solid-state cameras, we saw Sony was one of the major ones. They were using their own proprietary version of solid-state media. That didn't work over so well for them. Other people, you know, other manufacturers came onto the market using secure digital and compact flash, depending on how much bandwidth you needed to shoot from the camera onto the card. And that's where, you know, solid-state cameras or solid-state workflows really took off, is because they are they're doing a lot of amazing things for what they can do. So tape as a whole, I don't want to say it's dead, yeah, but it's definitely dying and going away. Firewire is absolutely dead. There are very, very few, and believe me, as a guy who used to do, you know, live streaming from various events, I miss Firewire.
Yeah. Because
it was so easy to set up, you know, come in with a laptop and a Firewire, you know, a DV camera, you know, digital video camera, and just set up and start streaming. You know, I think that the thing that's going to replace that is going to go back to iPhones, and hopefully when we ever see true 4G on a mobile device, we'll be able to do a lot more.
Oh yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and go to flash-based, which seems to be not saying all they manufacture, but that's kind of the standard now, going to flash-based, either using cards and or built-in flash memory. Yeah,
everything that, I mean, I would say that is, I would say at least 95% of the market, and anything that you're going to see on anything that you're going to see in a big box store is going to be shooting on some sort of flash media.
Yeah, definitely. Now, okay, since flash now seems to use a lot of HDMI for external viewing and other uses, and of course, with my cameras, I knew that Firewire and tape was being phased out, so that's kind of why I went to a flash-based camera, and then obviously use the HDMI as a capture device going out to the stream for the show as well. So
nice.
And now, what are your views on the built-in flash? You
know, it's great that they're starting to do it. I really wish it depends on the camera and the application. There are different, your shooting style is going to dictate, and what you're shooting is going to dictate if that's going to work for you or not. If you are a event videographer and you're going out and if you're doing a lot of events back to back, the XA10 is great because it has the 64 gig of internal that you can record onto. The bad part about it is you have to connect your camera to a computer to get it out of it. So,
oh, okay.
Now the other side of that is you can use it as redundant storage and shoot on the you can shoot on that and then move over to shooting on the 2 card slots that are on that camera.
Oh, okay. Well, I think now, even though we're if it has built-in flash, do they still make it with card slots? That way you're able to do card. Let's say all of a sudden the flash, built-in flash, doesn't work anymore. You gotta have a way of being able to still record it. So I'm guessing even if it's built in, we're always going to see the additional slots to be able to record that way.
Canon was notorious. They were the ones that in their consumer line, they made a couple of cameras that were very, very early on that were either memory only or flash only external or internal only. And we're now seeing, like in their G10, it has a 32 gig internal flash drive, but it also allows for 2 SD memory card slots. And so it's a hybrid. It'll do both. It's just like the G10 is actually I would call it the cousin camera of the XA10. It just doesn't have the professional audio inputs.
Yeah.
Everything else is the same camera. They just don't ship it with the handle.
And of course, most cameras nowadays have USB 2, which nowadays is primarily used for file transfer.
Right. Actually, and on the camera, it's only used for file transfer. That was one of the things that when, early on, when I saw the writing on the wall, I knew that FireWire was dead. My days of being able to do streaming with a new camera were limited. I was thinking, hey, well, that's cool. It has USB 2, so I can just connect that to my laptop, and I'll be able to stream from that, right? No, it's not a live video out.
Yeah.
And so that was really disappointing. Now,
at one time, though, there used to be like a USB streaming, which I had with one of my Sony cameras. I think it was a High 8. But nowadays, it's primarily just for file transfer, though.
Yeah, that was the Digital 8.
Yeah.
Sony did that for a while, but there were so many driver issues that went along with that camera only survived one generation. I had one of those, and it was amazing for what it was.
Yeah.
And one of the cameras that it came out with, it had USB streaming video over it or FireWire, and if you needed to, you could use it for either application, and it was brilliant. But you had so many driver issues that went along with it. That,
I didn't know that. That's
interesting. It was horrible. I mean, once you had a stable platform, write the ghost image, put that in a vault, and if you ever had to, you refresh it from that image. It was, as soon as you got it working, you just didn't want to breathe near the laptop.
Yeah. But let's go ahead and get into video editing using the different cameras. Even iMovie, Final Cut Pro, Premiere, and even some of the higher ends. Importing, exporting, and render. Now, does choosing your file format for a particular... Because I know, for instance, when I got the XF100 Canon, that I was worried. I wanted to try the new Final Cut Pro 10. So I was very worried about if the file format be recognized within, Final Cut Pro 10, the new one that just came out.
Right.
And so... this file format, so how would you define workflow? Let's say you're going to buy a camera as far as video editing.
But yeah, that's a major, you know, deciding factor. I have, you know, I've been a video editor for more than 10 years, and I have had to change platforms based upon you know, some of the technologies that we were using at different facilities. But overall, you know, in times past, I was able to stay on the same platform regardless of what camera I was using. With right now, Final Cut X or Final Cut 10 is having a lot of issues that I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware of. They have gone through and they've really messed up. And
yeah, oh my gosh.
They have really shut the professional video editor out of, you know, their tools, and they're trying to make it right. Actually, as we're you know, talking about this, I'm you know, seeing my Twitter stream, and there are a bunch of people saying that there are small updates for Final Cut X and compressor from Apple today. Hopefully those are going to address some of the import-export issues in the file formats. But right now, I don't see it as a viable platform for anybody who's really serious about video. I would, if you're on the Mac platform, I would say stay on Final Cut 7 and just upgrade to the latest version of 7, which I believe is 7.0.3. The other thing, you know, the good thing that has come out of all of the Final Cut X issues is that Adobe has really ponied up, and if you own a copy of Final Cut X or Final Cut 7, I believe you're still able to get the Adobe Production Premium for half price.
Well, this is kind of my thought on Final Cut Pro 10 that came out. It's great if you're independent and you don't need to export it to other people, like, you know, audio and coloring and all that. And it's just one person. I think it's great. And, you know, I love it. I understand it's not going to be a solution for pros yet until hopefully they're going to implement some of the changes to, like, the older Final Cut Pro, which is Final Cut Pro 7. So I just want to throw that in there. I think it's great for people moving up from iMovie into something a lot more advanced. So
yeah, I was really funny. You know, I was at NAB when they announced Final Cut X, and I was super stoked with what they were showing and what they had promised, but we didn't think about all the things that they didn't say.
Wow.
It's like, oh, well, that's going to be there. Well, it wasn't. And, you know, one of my friends who is a Final Cut fanatic, I mean, now I say that he also uses Avid, he also uses Premiere. He's a colorist. He does film recoloring professionally, and he and I share the same view on it. Your piece of software is a hammer. It's a tool. It's not going to make you a better video editor. It's not going to make your product any better. Only you can tell your story better. Your software can't. And knowing that that it's really about it's about the story more than it is about the software. I am notorious for, on the things when I was doing daily video edits and sending video for television production among 7 satellite networks, on the things that I needed done in 10 minutes, I did them in Sony Vegas. And no one knew about that, because all of the production directors, if they saw that I was going to give them I delivered on Betacam SP, which is a professional tape format, but they had no idea what I actually did the work in. and they couldn't tell. It was a matter of what can I get done quickly so that I can get this tape FedExed, to a different state so it can be on the air tomorrow.
Okay, we're already showing 46 minutes into the our guest with Brad, so we're going to go ahead and finish up the broadcast interview because we're going to upload it. So thanks, Brad Parler from TapeWorks, Texas, and of course, I believe the website for that is www.tapeworkstexas.com, which is with an S, TapeWorks. Don't forget to add that in there. And I don't know if you want to put any more links or that in there before.
Yeah. If you have any questions and you wanted to ask anything about video, you can follow me on Twitter. It's at Brad Parler. Or you can follow TapeWorks Texas. It's at TapeWorks TX on Twitter. You can also find us on Facebook. I'm not just here to sell things. I'm here to make sure that you get the right camera for what you're doing. And so, if you have any questions, just give me a call.
Okay, and if you just stick in Skype just a minute, and we'll go ahead and end the broadcast.